Far from Washington, far from London, but at the heart of a growing global power struggle, a cluster of remote islands in the Indian Ocean is suddenly back in the spotlight. The long-running dispute over the Chagos Archipelago, home to the strategically vital U.S. naval support facility Diego Garcia, has taken an unexpected turn. As Britain prepares to transfer sovereignty of the islands to Mauritius, a much closer nation has stepped forward with a rival claim, the Maldives. Speaking to Newsweek, Maldivian President Mohamed Muizzu signaled his willingness to assume control of Chagos, while allowing the United States and the United Kingdom to continue operating freely from Diego Garcia. Muizzu acknowledged President Donald Trump's mounting national security concerns, offering to preserve the status quo through parliamentary approval, backed by his party's strong majority. Under current British control, Diego Garcia has operated for decades as one of America's most remote yet powerful military hubs, capable of hosting nuclear-capable B-2 bombers and projecting force across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. That reality, Trump argues, must not be jeopardized. Though the White House initially approved Britain's agreement with Mauritius, Trump has since reversed course, blasting the plan as reckless. In a fiery social media post, he warned that handing over Diego Garcia amounted to total weakness, claiming China and Russia were watching closely. He even linked the controversy to his renewed calls for U.S. control of Greenland. London, however, insists the deal is settled. British officials point to rulings by the UN General Assembly and the International Court of Justice recognizing Mauritius as the rightful negotiating party, stressing that a 99-year lease would secure the base for generations. But Muizzu says geography and history tell a different story. The Maldives lies just 310 miles from Chagos. Mauritius is more than 4 times farther away. Muizzu points to centuries-old gravestones etched in Divehi, Maldivian royal decrees from the 16th century, archaeological evidence, and even DNA links tying today's Chagosians to Maldivian ancestry. To the Maldives, Chagos is not distant territory, it is full Havahi, part of a shared cultural and economic past. The stakes extend beyond sovereignty. The Indian Ocean has become a front line of great power rivalry, with the US, China, and India all vying for influence along critical trade routes. Muizzu's rise in 2023 initially strained ties with India as he pushed an India-out agenda and deepened relations with Beijing. But relations with New Delhi have since warmed, even as Beijing continues expanding its footprint through infrastructure and development deals. Muizzu insists the Maldives refuses to choose sides. He calls it a Maldives first policy, balancing China as a development partner, India as a trusted neighbor, Britain as a natural ally, and the US as a security guarantor. Yet looming over every negotiation is the unresolved fate of the Chagosian people, expelled decades ago to make way for the base, still barred from returning to Diego Garcia. Many reject the UK-Mauritius deal, saying it once again decides their future without consent. As Washington and London reopen talks, and as the Maldives presses its case, one thing is clear: this is no longer just a dispute over islands. It is a collision of history, strategy, sovereignty, and a great power game unfolding across the seas.
Mr. Speaker, I've made out my position on Greenland absolutely clear on Monday and a moment ago. President Trump deployed words on Chagos yesterday that were different to his previous words of welcome and support when I met him in the White House. He deployed those words yesterday for the express purpose of putting pressure on me and Britain in relation to my values and principles on the future of Greenland. Mr. Speaker, he wants me to yield on my position, and I'm not going to do so. Given that that was his express purpose, I'm surprised the Leader of the Opposition has jumped on the bandwagon. I had understood her position. Mr. Speaker, I had understood her position to be that she supported the government's position on the future of Greenland. Now she appears to support words by President Trump to undermine the government's position on the future of Greenland. She's chosen naked opportunism over the national interest.
And let's look at what President Trump actually said. The Chagos deal is an act of great stupidity and a sign of total weakness. We didn't need President Trump to tell us that. We've been saying this for 12 months. And let's remind the Prime Minister, President Trump thought that we were doing this, that the Prime Minister is doing this for money. The Prime Minister is giving away territory we own and paying £35 billion for the privilege. Why doesn't he just scrap this terrible deal and put the money into our armed forces?
Prime Minister.
The words from President Trump were expressly intended to put pressure on me to yield on my principle. What he said about Chagos was literally in the same sentence as what he said about Greenland. That was his purpose. And the future of Greenland is a binary issue that is splitting the world at the moment with material consequences. I've been clear and consistent in my position on the future of Greenland. The future is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. 4 days ago, she said she supported our position on Greenland. Now she's backing arguments intended to undermine our position, Britain's position on Greenland. This is an important national moment, and yet again, the Leader of the Opposition has shown she is incapable of rising to it.
On the Chinese spy hub embassy, he's too weak. On Chagos, he's too weak. On funding for the armed forces, he's too weak. On protecting our veterans from prosecution, he's too weak. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I will support the Prime Minister when he does the right thing. But time after time, this Prime Minister has done the wrong thing for our country. Isn't the truth that he is too weak to stand up for our national interests?
Mr. Speaker, I've spent the week working with our NATO allies to protect our national security and ensure we're having unity in NATO. That's a matter of national importance. She's utterly failed to rise to the occasion and show the solidarity she could have shown in this House.
With Donald Trump increasingly acting like a crime boss running a protection racket, threatening to smash up our economy unless he gets his hands on Greenland, will the Prime Minister avoid Blair's historic mistake, take our advice this time, and join Prime Minister Carney and President Macron in standing up far more strongly to President Trump?
Prime Minister.
Well, he clearly isn't listening. I said I will not yield on the principles and values that I uphold, this country upholds in relation to the future of Greenland. But the relationship with the US matters, especially on defence, security and intelligence and nuclear capability, also on trade and prosperity. Mr. Speaker, whilst he's trying to get sound bites, we mustn't forget a war is raging in Europe. It is in its 4th year. The Russians are raining bombs down on Ukrainian civilians day and night. Temperatures were -20 in Kyiv last night. 60% is without power. People are erecting tents to keep themselves warm. We have to work with our allies, including the US, on security guarantees to make sure we can do what we must do in relation to Ukraine. Now, that does not mean we agree with the US on everything, and I've been absolutely clear on my position on Greenland and my position on tariffs, but it is foolhardy to think that we should rip up our relationship with the US, abandon Ukraine, and so many other things that are important to our defence, security and intelligence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The thug in the White House has shown that he doesn't listen to grovelling or sycophancy. He'll continue to harm British interests, no matter how compliant we are, and, like all bullies, he will always find the weakest link. Will the Prime Minister close ranks with our European allies and commit to retaliatory tariffs?
Well said.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've made our position clear. I've set out my principles. I'm not going to yield on those principles. But as I said on Monday, of course we need to protect our national interest, and we will always protect our national interest. But simply hurtling at the first opportunity into a trade war is going to hurt working people and businesses across the country. And that is why I'm working hard to make sure we do not get to that point, and I'll continue to act in the national interest.